news that's coming out of Bolton Wanderers so far at this present moment in time, and it is the manager situation. Who is going to fill that vacancy? There's one name that seems to be top of the list in every bookmakers at the moment, and that's Barrow boss Ian Everett.
Yeah, I said this on Saturday Sport the other week, Danny. I'm sure you've been looking and researching Everett, and you've seen what he's done with Barrow this season. We both have. Top of the National League at the moment.
Been promoted now to League.
Been promoted, well. Yeah. Well, yeah, they have been promoted, yeah. But top of the National League, you don't get to the top of the National League without playing decent football or without being good. He went in there. He's done wonders at Barrow. An old-fashioned centre half, which I mentioned to Jim the other week as well, and we've chatted about. Played for Blackpool, played for a host of different clubs. Old-fashioned centre half with old-fashioned morals, but he's playing Barcelona type football, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a keen man. He likes watching Pep Guardiola and his side and how they've set up, and he's trying to build a team similar. Obviously not got the quality of what Pep Guardiola's got and the funds that Pep Guardiola's had, but still making that work with the budget that he's got. And yeah, he's 1 to 10 favourite at the moment, so it's looking increasingly like he could be the Wanderers man. And I believe that Bolton Wanderers made an official approach for him as well. So there's definitely progression in the story, but Barrow don't want to let their man go very, very cheaply. They are demanding £250,000, £250,000 up front for the 38-year-old, and for the size of that figure, it has been questioned among folk at the end of the M6, which is obviously where Bolton are based. It's clear to see that Bolton, if they are going to stump up, it is a sizable event, and how they're going to get that money so fast.
Indeed, Dan, it's a lot of money to be asking a club that have been in Bolton's financial situation. Granted, they're in a bit more of a decent situation than they were this time last year. Obviously Sharon's got the club operating better. Bolton believe that now they can go and get the manager that they want and can compensate the club they're going getting the manager from. If that does, happen, it's not happened yet, but it could happen, and it looks like it might happen, but nothing is confirmed as of yet. It's key that we stress that right now as we talk to you right now. Like you say, he's trying to play a decent style of football. What he's done is he's rubbished all the rumours and all the stuff that gets thrown at him and at other managers in the lower leagues that you can't play football in the Football League and the National League and even lower down than that. Everett's definitely rubbished them people and showed that a side like Barrow with decent quality footballers can play a decent and wonderful and entertaining style of football whilst keeping possession and frustrating the opposition. And when he joined Barrow, Danny, he said that they didn't have many footballers. So what did he do? Like you say, didn't have the funds to go out and buy the best footballers he could. Couldn't go out and sign, the likes of players that Pep has got or other possession-based footballers like Bielsa, football managers like Bielsa. But he went and bought good footballers that were good with the ball, that can play a possession style, and he's definitely developed them as a coach and developed himself too.
Yeah, definitely, and it's also understood from the Bolton News that Barrow's assistant manager, Peter Everton, could also be part of the negotiations, and his compensation be included in that fee. Barrow is still maintaining that there's been no official approach from Bolton, but Everton, like I said, has been bought up to 10-1 on the bookmakers. In the 12 days since Keithill's dismissal, Wanderers have done plenty of homework on the former Chesterfield and Blackpool defender, and though no official statements are due at the club, it seems very, very likely we will know if he will be a new Bolton boss by the end of the week. Barrow boss has earned widespread praise for guiding the Cumbrian club back into the Football League and on one of the National League's smallest budgets and implementing an attractive brand of football, something that you've just mentioned a second ago, Harlan. So definitely, as a Bolton fan, something to look forward for. It changed the identity of Bolton Wanderers. Obviously, with the way that we've been playing over yesteryears, it's been like, say, pass, long ball, hook the ball up top, big man up front, hold the ball up, and try and get the goals that way. And it has worked, but then over the last few years, it's also led to the decline of obviously Bolton Wanderers. So maybe a new style, new identity. We are in League 2 now. Obviously, we are trying to stabilise, change identity, and get ourselves back up to the Premier League at some point in the near future. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of patience, and probably a lot of chopping and changing in between there. Obviously, they brought Keithill and David Flitcroft in, and yeah, it was a tough job for him. Granted, the season was starting with minus 12 points. They were basically didn't have any senior players in the squad. A lot of the younger players had to play the opening game of the season, and when they did have a chance to sign people, when they did come in, they literally had a matter of hours to bring some of those players in. Some of those players were actually top players in for Bolton last season, like the likes of T-Ball Linden, a player that the fans grew and loved at his time at the Bolton, and he loved his time at Bolton as well. Evil Hamilton, another player that he's brought in, I know he's been released from Manchester United, so maybe, if possible, maybe Bolton Wanderers, if they can, potentially sign him, because he was a great player to have at the club and very experienced, and he did well in League One for Southend and for Bolton. So I suppose there's a few players you could look at, quite a few released youth players across the top divisions. But going back to Ian Everett, he's a man. He just seems like the man for the job at the moment in time. You look at the other runners in there: Sol Campbell, David Lee, to mention a few.
Kevin Nolan's still being mooted for the job as well, Dan, but that one's took a bit of a back seat now in a lot of Bolton fans' minds. As good as that would be, is Nolan experienced enough? Has he really got the experience needed? All right, you could say that about Everett, but I think the identity and the vision and the way that he wants to play will be something that will impress Sharon. And will have impressed Sharon if he's been interviewed in depth.
Yeah, if you've seen the video of Barrow
Salona on, I think it was T4, wasn't it? On YouTube.
If you've not seen that video, it's definitely worth a watch. You can see what he's done for the club. As you said, a club that's implementing an attractive style of football.
Signing footballers, key thing.
With the smaller budgets, and we all know that Bolton Wanderers, under an embargo, under a wage cap, that is possibly we're not going to be able to do that. It's going to probably have similar funds, if not maybe a little bit more, but than what Borough had at the time. But yeah, definitely. And we have some good players in our squad now, some of the young players, like the likes of Dennis Pottick, Ron and Darcy, who are still tied into the club. I know a few players might be out of contract, maybe retain a few of their service. Ali Crawford, for me, a definite, if that's something that we can hold of. But yeah, believe it or not, when the manager comes in, obviously he's got, if the decision is made by the end of the week, then great, he's got time to bring players in, he's got time to get to know the club as a fan. He likes to get in with the fans as well, which is it's always great. And usually if the bookies are putting a 10-1,
exactly, yeah, it's almost done, isn't it?
Or 1 to 10, as it is.
Do you think it's key as well, Dan, to mention that, you know, he's a lot of his playing days, you know, all right, granted Chesterfield's not as close as Blackpool and Tranmere to us right now, but the fact that he knows the Northwest a bit as well, and knows, all right, Tranmere is almost Merseyside, and the Wirral, but he knows what fans in the Northwest like. Because, all right, you could argue that fans in different places are all the same, and all football fans are the same. But among many people, there is a difference in location, and me being a Northern fan, we almost like to pride ourselves on that passion and that grit and determination, and he'll definitely know what Northern football fans and Bolton Wanderers fans are going to want, even without meeting them.
Definitely, and just to get someone in with fresh ideas, fresh style, something different. Because what we've been using over the last few seasons, obviously Claire's been working. We mentioned the stat a couple of weeks back about Bolton spent 500 days in relegation zone. Like, we need to improve. Obviously, like I said, we're literally in League 2 now, the verge of leaving the EFL, which obviously we don't want. We want to progress and go forward now. So maybe he could come in, implement a style of football that suits Bolton Wanderers and changes Bolton's style of play, and get some back going again. It might not work straight away, but obviously we've got to give the man a chance. You've got to give him time, and it's a tough one. I'm looking at all the people that are on the list, and some are experienced and some are not. You've got to look at it this way. It's a big challenge for whoever comes in, and
indeed,
if Ian thinks that he's going to be the right man for the job and he feels that he can change Bolton Wanderers, then I'm happy to sit and watch and hopefully see some enjoyable football next season when it's safe to actually return to the stadiums to watch the football. But definitely,
it's exciting. It's exciting. Dan, I think one thing that's key to mention as well is that Keith Hill had this vision, and obviously from speaking to him that day, and obviously you hearing the interview and us speaking, off air as well about what we spoke about. Me, Keith, Ron, and Dave spoke about things off air as well, where we spoke about the plans they had and the things that they wanted to do and who they wanted to sign, and that they might only be able to sign the players they really want to sign, in the next couple of months, and they're not going to have that opportunity now. But I think that Keith's vision was to sign players to almost play this wonderful possession style football that he did play at Rochdale. But that at Rochdale wasn't built overnight. That at Rochdale was built over various years. They went to Barnsley, then they came back, and then they picked up where they left off. For Hill to implement what he had implemented, he would have needed time. Now Everett's had his time at Barrow, so hopefully whatever Everett does at Bolton, he will almost bring everything from Barrow that he's brought with him, everything he's learned, and then he should be able to hit the ground running at Bolton. But like you say, if Bolton can retain players like Hamilton and Emmanuel and other players that had played possession football under Keith Hill, although Keith Hill didn't mean to lay foundations for a new manager and would rather them foundations have been laid for him, indirectly he has in effect given everything he needs to hit the ground running alongside what he's already going to bring to Bolton.
Yeah, definitely. And he's probably keeping an eye on a few players that he was looking to sign for Barrow, obviously with them being promoted, and now he might think, actually, do you know what?
The Barrow fans are now thinking, well, we're ready to say hello to him, but now he's off to Bolton. Yeah. True. That is really true. You know, his whole shortlist now is going to Bolton.
Definitely, he would have been keeping on tabs on the fact that the potential being that they get promoted next season, if they do get promoted.
So they've been looking at players that could play in the Football League.
Definitely, and if he feels that they would be more suited to Bolton now, that if he does get the job, then by all means, who knows, he might have a list of players, but all we know is that they'll start on a level playing field. We'll have a pre-season. He'll have a chance. If he comes in early enough, he'll have a chance to get to other players that are already there, see what he's got already, see what he's missing, and then what he's missing, he can then implement into the squad moving forward. And if he can get Bolton playing any kind of passing possession kind of football, maybe not as good as what like your club Man City does, but in a sense where.
But the League Two version, which would probably get you quite out of the league. Because not a lot of teams in League Two, a lot more are trying it now.
Yeah.
But you can try it, doing it's a completely different thing. And some teams that do try it, that haven't got the players, it ends up being the downfall of them.
I think as well as a defender, as well, you know that position better than anywhere else on that pitch.
And he's going to look to build from the back.
Yeah, definitely, because you're going to play out from the back, you're going to pass, you're going to move and stuff like that. I think as a defender, you're going to know how to defend, you're going to know, and you can bring the right people in for that particular position.
He'll know defensive coaches. He might even bring in somebody that
himself.
You know, Alex Baptiste, a player that he played with at Blackpool, a player that you know well, Alex Baptiste. He might bring him in as a coach. You never know. It might be somebody where he believes that a certain player like that, or somebody he played with at Blackpool years ago, might be somebody that could benefit Bolton defensively. But one more thing, Dan, before we finish up the Bolton chat, is the identity and how the fans kind of adapt to a new identity. You know, I more than anyone as a City fan know that for me, it was a lot easier because I'd watched Pep manage at Barcelona and Bayern Munich, and being a younger fan than a lot of the older generation, I was a bit more accepting of the style completely changing. All right, we had Mancini and Pellegrini that played possession-style football, but maybe not as intense as Pep with the build-up and everything else. Now, going from Stuart Pearce to Pep Guardiola, that is some transition for the older fan.
Yeah.
And, you know, going from maybe Kevin Keegan and Joe Royle, who did play good football, and other managers in the past, to now be seeing this football played even 4 or 5 years ago. When Pep came in, not everybody, even though they knew that success would come eventually, not everybody was happy with this style of football being played at City. Some people still like the old counter-attacking, get the ball into the box, be a bit more direct kind of style of play. Now, as Pep's developed in the job, that's become a bit more apparent. We've adapted a bit more. We know that in certain games you may have to resort to doing that. You may have to play possession football in certain moments in a game. You may have to change your ways. But the fan base sometimes needs to be converted. And even now at games at the Etihad, there are still fans that don't like the patient build-up play and still are screaming and shouting, saying, get the ball to the pitch. I don't want to watch us play nervy football at the back, even though they know that Ederson, who could be Bolton's new goalkeeper, not Bolton's new goalkeeper, but the Bolton version of Ederson, might be very comfortable on the ball. They still feel very nervous about it and aren't accepting of a change in philosophy. But how would what would you say to Bolton fans about that?
I suppose you've got to give anyone patience. It's got to be patient. Yeah, changing the style of play completely at a club is definitely going to take a bit of time. Maybe a few mistakes in there. Yeah, as fans, we want to see goals because we want the game to be entertaining. We obviously want to see our score. We want the 3 points. We obviously want that. So if it's possession for possession's sake, we know that can be very boring and very thing. We want that to mean something.
Yeah, which is something that Pep hates as well. He actually said that as well last year. He hates possession for possession's sake. You know, he also rubbish the tiki-taka thing that gets mentioned. Pep does not play tiki-taka football. When somebody plays a possession-based style of football now, the first thing that people say it is tiki-taka. Now, if you do your research on what tiki-taka is, it's actually not the style of play that Pep or Everett play. It is something completely different. It's got to be possession with a purpose. And the difference between what tiki-taka is and what Everett's going to try and do at Bolton and what he's already done at Barrow and what Pep does at City is that it's all about overloads. So what you'll do is you'll overload one side of the pitch, you'll try to cause an imbalance in the opponent's style, and then you'll switch the ball and try and attack them at the most vulnerable point. And the build-up's got a strategic plan. The goalkeeper's massively involved in what they're trying to do, which is something that Bolton fans might not have seen a lot of. It takes a bit of getting used to, but I think the big word and the key word here is patience and belief in what the manager's trying to do. And yes, the results might not be immediate, but what you'll see in the coming months will reap absolute dividends for you as fans.
Yeah, definitely. It's always going to be a risk as well, getting a manager like Ian Everett. Obviously, we don't know obviously how he's going to feature in League 2. Obviously, he's been doing it in National League. Can he step up? That is always going to be a question. There's always going to be risk in that. But the reward is if he can get the playing style, as you just mentioned, like that, then maybe we can see a positive future for Bolton Wanderers. But
do you think his knowledge of the leagues is important as well, Dan? The fact that he's played in both League 1 and League 2?
Definitely he's going to have the knowledge of the leagues he's played in them, as you said. That's always a positive in anything. But right now, obviously, he is the front runner for the job. Whether or not that's going to happen, whether or not Bolton are going to be willing to stump up £250,000 in compensation. There's still a lot of twists and turns in this. As Bolton Wanderers, we know that there's a lot of twists and turns in anything. And then just obviously before we, like you say, we do end up the Bolton shot, obviously we know Ali Crawford taking a contract in the month, so it's kind of vital that we do, and other players as well for that matter, that could still do a job for Bolton. It's vital that we do get a manager in as soon as possible, and they can start speaking and see if some of those players like Ali Crawford are going to be players moving forward in the future, like Jason Law, Jacobs, maybe Remy Matthews, amongst a few others. Are any of them players going to be good enough, or are they going to fit in Everett or whoever comes in's new style of play? And this is where I suppose you've got to act fast on the manager, because if you lose some of those players, he may have been able to utilise the players.
Exactly, yeah.
And could
it's a snowball effect, isn't it?
Could be a big loss. So
it's one thing has to happen for another cog to turn, so on and so forth. If that cog doesn't turn quick enough, that other cog will go, and then I suppose now it's just a case of what will be, and when it happens, hopefully quicker.
But another thing Bolton are waiting for is if the EFL are going to bring in that budget next season a player cap, salary cap, and if they do, then that could also hinder retaining some of these players. Like I said, there's still a lot of twists and turns yet to happen in probably the next couple of days, couple of months. But once we get a new manager in and he can retain some of the players before they're out of contract, then possibly we can see that style of player being developed early, the few pre-season friendlies, just to kind of get in the way. He'll have plenty of time on the training pitch before the new season starts, and then hopefully moving forward we might see Bolton Wanderers playing very, very well, eye-watering football for that matter. But still, just talking about Bolton and as well, I've seen a list of all these clubs that have played money on agents, and Bolton were the only club in all top divisions not to pay a single agent fee. Didn't pay anything to an agent over last year. So, but yeah, if Bolton Wanderers are restricted to spending only $1.25 million a year on the squad next season, and the salary capping plans does go ahead as probably planned, then does that affect Bolton Wanderers in terms of?
Well, it does. It does, because the kinds of players that Everett's going to want to bring in are going to be coming in and expecting League 2 wages, and if a wage cap comes in, you're not going to be able to reward better players. I know it's fair to say that better players are going to feel they deserve more money. So if you put a wage cap on it, should it not be that? We'll talk about this more next week, Dan, the wage cap. But should a manager have the discretion to pay a player what he believes that player deserves to be paid?
I suppose why. Obviously, we've seen what happened with Bolton. We've seen what happened to Bray last season. You don't want to go to the fact that you're paying extraordinary wages for players and then not being able to afford them, and then you have the teams like Maxwell this season who have unfortunately not been able to play the players at certain points of the season, just as Bolton didn't. We kind of need to maybe put a cap on it so we don't see clubs like Bolton going into that financial situation as they did last time, and other clubs in a similar position. So maybe, just maybe,